Hello and welcome. I'm Dr. Adam Dorsey, a psychologist in Silicon Valley and the host of Super Psyched, a podcast dedicated to supercharging your life. Each episode contains fun, high-quality interviews with experts looking at psychology from all angles. Super Psyched is your tool to get more of what you want in your life and less of what you don't. On Labor Day, Steve Harwell, the frontman of Smash Mouth, died at the age of 56. Like many people, I'm a big fan of the band, and I'm really sad about this. Smash Mouth's lead guitarist and songwriter was Greg Camp, and yes, he wrote all the songs you love, including All Star. Fortunately, I've known Greg for many years, and he gave a great interview on episode 35 just a few years ago. He was kind enough to meet up with me again and share some intimate behind-the-scenes experiences of his relationship with Steve, as well as his memory of this icon of pop culture describing Steve, the person behind his frontman image. Greg gives a beautiful homage to Steve in this episode, and he actually creates art in bringing Steve to life while he is grieving the loss of his friend and bandmate. You will hear about Steve's spectacular successes, and you'll also hear about his hardships, some of which are utterly devastating. We touch upon the tragic loss of Steve's only child, Presley, who died at the age of 6 months from leukemia. As you might imagine, this is a kind of loss that has no word or descriptor. I mean, there is a word for someone who has lost a spouse. We call them a widow or a widower, or a person who has no parents. We call them an orphan, but there is no word for what Steve experienced, and it is overwhelming to even imagine. But you'll also hear the lighter and inspirational side of Steve, including how he convinced Greg to join forces with him to create Smash Mouth. You'll hear about Steve's philosophy of do something every day, stories about who Steve was, how he changed Greg's life and even saved Greg's life, as well as the song that defines Steve in Greg's eyes. Spoiler alert, it's probably not a song you'll expect. So listen in as Smash Mouth's guitarist and songwriter, Greg Camp, remembers Steve Harwell. Greg Camp, a hearty welcome back to Super Psyched.
I'm glad you reached out.
Man, I've been thinking about you all week. I've been playing Smash Mouth all week. When my son told me that Steve Harwell had died, it was almost like he was saying something that didn't really make sense to me. It took me a few seconds to actually understand the words that were coming out of his mouth, which are linguistically, obviously, fairly easy words. But I just couldn't quite wrap my head around, like, what are you saying? And then I've been following you on Facebook and your shares about your relationship with this brother of yours in music. And I've just been brought to tears and just blown away by how fortunate we have been just to be the beneficiaries of your songwriting and your ability to create, as you describe it, to create a car for Steve to drive so beautifully. And we'll talk about that concept later. But you built the car, he would drive it, and damn, did he drive the shit out of that car.
Yeah, it's incredible. It's still kind of sinking in for me. You know, when you called, I told you, I'm like, didn't feel like talking to a lot of people because it's just so rough. But when you called, I wanted to answer. You're a very calming person, and I needed that at that. So thank you very much for reaching out to me. Yeah. So it's just been tons and tons of stories and texts and people sharing their stories with me. And they're all so good. He was just such a very caring human. He loved children. He loved family. So anytime any band member's family would show up to a gig or whatever, he made sure the red carpet was rolled out. He was very welcoming and charming and just all that.
You're about to make me cry here. And I never had the pleasure of meeting Steve, but I inferred just from learning about his life from a distance that losing his own son, Presley, must have led to all kinds of bad things. If he valued family so much, he's only listed as having one child. And if he valued family so much, sure, superstardom is amazing, having your face all over the place and your song being sung by literally millions of people. But family was such a big deal for him. And I'm guessing that was always maybe an empty place.
I mean, any parent would tell you it's like that is just unthinkable. And it would just be so hard to pull out of any sort of tailspin that was happening if he lost a child. You know,
It's impossible.
I don't even like to think about it, but I can't really even speak on that because I can't relate to it. But we were all there. We took a little time off. He took some time off, and then he really wanted to get back into it after that. And yeah, sure, there was a lot of pain there, but he really wanted to be making music and singing and being in front of people. And he just wanted to keep it going. He started a foundation, the Presley Scott Foundation for Children with Leukemia. And when a child gets something like that, it's exaggerated and the process is sped up because they're growing so fast, as opposed to someone who's older. Like my father has leukemia and he's 83 years old and he's living through it and he's living with it.
I'm so sorry to hear that, Greg. I didn't know that.
Yeah. He just got here. So we're hanging out. He's been living in the Philippines for a few years and now he's back. And so I'll get to spend time with him and take him to doctor's appointments and things like that. So,
wow. So
anyway,
how fortunate he is and to have you care for him and how fortunate you are to have this, sounds like a very meaningful time with him. And in the aftermath of Steve's passing, just how precious life, I'm guessing, must be to you in this moment in time where you're really appreciating life probably in a new way.
For sure. We'll just speak candidly. The whole addiction thing, I know all about that. I'm in recovery myself and I know how rough it is to kick those habits. And we were basically enabled to do whatever we wanted. We were like kids in a candy store and everyone was giving us candy. And it's a hard business to try to stay sober in.
We were talking about appreciation of life. And one of the ways that we numb ourselves from life itself is through going to the candy store. It seems like it's bringing on more of life, but there's a very short tipping point where you're more alive at one moment and then you become numb.
It's about right. Yeah. Steve struggled for years, especially after the tragedy. I think it just took a very firm grasp on him. There were times when he was sober and there were times when he wasn't, but towards the end, I think it just got him.
I think that, Eric Clapton kind of got it right when he said, "She don't lie, cocaine." Because when we don't have great coping strategies on hand, the drug isn't going to let us down. It's going to give us that delivery system every time consistently, even if on diminishing returns, even if it's causing impairment and we're hearing from other people, you're insufferable when you're on the substance. That thing will deliver.
It's a Band-Aid. It's a quick fix, but it's not a way to do it.
So it's like trying to quench your thirst by drinking ocean water, but it's there, but it's not going to do what you're wanting it to do in the long term. If you don't mind going there for a minute, you and Steve were brothers essentially in a band, and that's a very unusual friendship. There is a symbiotic relationship, like you're relying on each other. If the thing is going to go well, the two of you have to be in agreement, getting along. And I'm thinking about Lennon and McCartney, how they were often in love and hating each other at the same time because each of them had different ideas for direction of the band. Each of them had egos. And I'm just wondering, what was that like? What was that, if you were to describe the complexities of the relationship itself?
I hate to say it, but it was a pretty typical lead singer, guitar player relationship. They both want to be each other. They both can, but they both need each other and they hate each other, but they love each other.
I mean, nothing complex there.
It's pretty typical. Unfortunately, it's like we could be the poster guys for that. But yeah, we definitely loved each other. There were a lot of times when we couldn't be around each other or stand each other. There were times when if the band wasn't doing well, it was one of our faults. It was because I wasn't writing a hit or he wasn't coming up with something. And so there was just a lot of power struggle, I guess would be the right way to put that. I wanted to keep things the way Smash Mouth started. We had ethics and we didn't care we wanted to be on the radio, don't get me wrong, but we wanted to do it on our own terms. We wanted our own style of music. We had our own brand and I felt like it should stay there. And Steve really wanted to move out of that brand that we were doing. He wanted to do pop music and then he wanted to do country music and he wanted to do hip hop and all these things. And I really wanted to keep us in the lane of Smash Mouth's brand. And that's probably where we had the most trouble. So at some point, I lost control of that brand. And so I just had to step out. It didn't make any sense for me. And I stepped out. And so therefore, Steve and I had a very strained relationship when that happened. But soon after that, we talked and we put our differences aside and I started playing with them again. And soon after that, something happened and I stepped out again, and I like kind of went back and forth for a while and tried to write some new songs and get it back on track as far as I was concerned. But the songs that I was turning in just weren't really working out for Steve. And so I guess I'm no longer needed here.
Wow.
So, and that's fine. You got to kind of pass the baton or like.
It's fine. And yet the last taste of Smash Mouth was not the last taste probably that you wanted to have. It sounds like it was a little bit sour.
A little bit, but still friends with all of them.
Totally get that. I'm just saying something as amazing as, I mean, we can talk about the origin. We did it last time a little bit. But you shared something on Facebook that was so funny. I'm still laughing about it. I mean, the idea that you were jamming with another band, you were tired, there was lots of Jaeger involved, and your car was broken. And Steve's like, come on, man, you got to get to practice. Can you share that story? Because it's so damn funny. And it so talks about the ethics and the roots. There's so many virtues in that story itself.
Right. Steve was a little bit of a drill sergeant at the beginning of the band. He was determined. He told me, he's like, I promise you, if you join this band, I will get us a record deal. And I was like, really? I'm like, you don't know what you're doing, man.
Come on. Like, how in the world?
I know. And I'm like, we're in San Jose. A couple of the guys in the band had never really been in a band before. They had a strange talent, Steve and Kevin. It wasn't necessarily your typical talent, but anyway, so he's like, well, we're going to get there and we're going to speed that process up by doing something every single day for the band, whether it's making a flyer or booking a gig or recording a song or writing a song or just hanging out, talking about something or trying to get some press, whatever. And I'm like, okay, every day except for Sunday anyway, because they like to watch football.
But 6 days a week, we are doing something to move the ball down the field. He was a football player, right?
Yeah.
At Prospect High School. So I'm guessing, I often think about, I used to be in sales. When I was doing my dissertation, it was moving the ball downfield every day. I totally gel with that idea. Every day, do something to move the needle forward. That's what he was about.
That's exactly what it was. And he did that. I mean, we got together in 1994 and we did that 6 days. We would do something to forward that band. And by 1997, we had a record deal. And he did it. I mean, with the help of Carson Daly, playing us on the radio before we were signed, and then taking us with him to K-Rock in LA and playing us on that station before we were signed. And we got signed because of all that. It was a combination of everything.
Can you share that moment? Like, he was so determined to get the ball moving every day, doing something every day, that he was not going to let you phone one in that one day. Can you just share that crazy story?
So Paul and I were in cover bands in San Jose. We played like 5 nights a week. And there was a lot of drinking involved. And there were a lot of hangovers involved. And I think one day I was just like, there's no way I'm going to practice today. I'm too hungover. I just want to stay on the couch and watch TV and eat bad food. And so I called him. I'm like, hey, my car won't start. I can't make it today. And I mean, it seemed like minutes later, but I heard Kevin Coleman's, our drummer's truck. He had like this crazy sounding lowrider truck. And it's just in the driveway. And I look out and there goes Steve with his tools. And he's going out to the backyard to find my old broken down 62 Falcon. And he fires that thing up and he sees me peeking through the blinds like, oh no.
Kilroy was here.
Yeah. And he's all, get to practice camp. And I'm like, ah. So I mean, that's just a typical thing, typical day with him. You had to do something.
I love that story. It was just the confluence of so many, just thinking about his strengths versus your strengths. And as you said earlier, I'd never actually heard about that singer guitarist dynamic. I'm thinking about Page and Plant. I'm thinking about Eddie Van Halen and David Lee Roth. I'm just wondering, like, I'm guessing this is always a thing, but he had certain things that you didn't, and you had certain things that he didn't, and you needed each other so badly. It feels like that was one of the keys to your success, was Steve's drive. Not to overuse the car metaphor, but that guy was like, we are doing this. We are driving through hell to get what we want.
Absolutely. He'd had definite drive and determination in everything that he did. He was a neat freak. He kept his cars perfect. He had old cars and they were all just like perfect. Everything ran right. That's how he treated the band. It had to be efficient. And he knew, like a car, I know we keep using that metaphor, each part played a role. And if there was something that he couldn't do, he'd go find it and insert that into the mix. And he had a vision and he made sure that was going to happen.
He was a resourceful cat, if you think about that. Now let's talk about that voice of his. I mean, I remember the first time I heard it on the radio. Thank you, Craig, for writing those songs. Thank you, Carson Daly, for helping, as I actually have heard Carson talk about Steve after his passing and how dear Steve was to him and remains clearly by how choked up he was. That voice, there's nothing like it. It's like a 1 in a billion voice, an impossible to find voice. I've never heard it. And he just leaned into whatever that voice, that amazing voice is that I can't even describe. What's up with that?
Well, I know what his influences are, but he doesn't sound like any of his influences, I don't think. He was an Elvis guy. He was a hip hop guy. And I think that what you hear is just when he opens his mouth, that's what it sounds like. He wasn't technically a great singer, but nobody sounds like that. He's like really gruff, and he had really good, because of his hip hop background, he had really good rhythm. And so the way that the words came out of his mouth, they were just like rhythmically perfect, and they just gelled and fit. And so I don't know how he did it. He's a big guy, and so he's really loud. And so microphones are always a little bit distorted when he was on them.
I mean, I love his sound, man. I mean, we're used to it, but I mean, I remember the first time I heard it, was like, that is a voice. Even if it wasn't so-called a beautiful voice, like a Freddie Mercury, but it was a voice that was just, first of all, he was on tune. He knew how to do it. He clearly knew how to breathe. He was super flexible. He could do seemingly any style, from rock and roll to ska and reggae to hip hop, as you said, to really heartfelt. I keep coming back to that song, Waste, you wrote. That's one of the deeper cuts that everyone should hear. It's like the ultimate heartache song. And he just hits the emotional notes. So the guy had flexibility.
Definitely. Yeah. I mean, I remember when he was singing that song in the studio, I was like, I've never heard him do this. This is amazing. It's a ballad, basically. And he knew how to take all the words that I wrote and make them his. I mean, he did that on all of them.
And by the way, I'd be remiss if I didn't say that beautiful guitar solo in that song that is distinctly American, by the way, in nature. Like that reverb that you have on it, it's a heavy guitar solo. And the whole thing of the two of you guys like coming together on that song, you could put that next to any damn song you want. It is one of the greatest songs I have ever heard, period.
Oh, wow. Thank you.
Period.
That means a lot. Thank you. It had all the stuff that I really loved at that time. It had sort of a hip hop break beat going on, and the surfy guitar sounds, and his vocal that sounds really murky and just spooky.
His sense of humor, by the way, let's just go there for a sec. Like, the guy was funny. And he could say it all with his face. It's like, hey, man, I'm going to let you in on the joke. There was like a wink that felt like it was always going on. That's at least his public persona. Are you vibing with that idea?
Oh, yeah. He's absolutely the funniest person you'd ever meet. His sense of humor was so weird, and it's his own sense of humor. It's one of those things where you probably find yourself doing things that your dad did, or that your parts of your mom come through in your personality. Anyone who ever met Steve has that same thing. His sense of humor was infectious, and we all picked it up, and now we all have it. So it's like a virus. One of the funnier things that came out with him was when he was talking to like radio people. He loved radio people, and he was still close with like a lot of the program directors and DJs and this and that. When he was talking to them, and like basically we would drive around the country when we weren't on tour and go to radio stations and visit. He and I would go visit and maybe play a song on acoustic guitar or something like that. And he would wheel and deal like he was a car salesman with them. He's like, okay, how many spins can we get this week? Let's bring that up to about 20. How about 20? You know what? Give me 18. You got 18? It's that. But he would do that in such a funny way, and he would get it. Like, they would do it because they loved him. They're like, even if the song wasn't All Star or Walking on the Sun, it was just like some other song that we had recorded. He could somehow do that.
Believable.
Yeah.
And speaking of the word believe, I mean, he was a guy, it's kind of on the nose that you guys did a great cover of I'm a Believer by Neil Diamond, which you guys are clearly fans of. But he could make you believe. And I'm thinking about you in high school. I mean, what the listener doesn't know, probably unless they went to high school with us, was the degree to which you shredded in high school just did not make sense. You were like 20 years ahead of where you should have been doing. I always go back to that one guitar solo that you had no business playing, except you played it perfectly. Don't Tell Me You Love Me. It was just like, this is not actually happening. He's not going to do it. He's doing it. Oh my God, he's perfect. How did he make you a believer? I mean, for you to double down and say, yeah, I'll attach my cart to this horse. Let's do this. For you to double down on somebody, this was your chance and you chose him. He chose you, but you chose him back. How did he convince you?
So going back to like 1994, playing in cover bands and this and that. And Paul and I were actually in another group called Lackadaddy, and it was sort of like Beastie Boys kind of thing.
It's amazing.
And in fact, I wrote Walking on the Sun for that band, and they passed on it. So as I said before, he would come over to my house. I'd see him like the night before at like Boswell's in Campbell in Prune Yard, and we'd
just there
be buying me beers, and he'd be like really trying to get me to join the band and stuff. I'm like, I'm already in a band. He's like, your band sucks. You got to come join my band. But he would say it in a super funny way that wasn't a put down. And so I'm like, I like this guy. He's like, let's check it out. So I'm like, okay, just here's my address. I wrote it probably on a napkin or something. And sure enough, at about 9 o'clock in the morning, the next morning, he was knocking on my window, my bedroom window. And he's like, get up, Camp, let's make some rock. Get up. I was like, oh yeah, that's right. I invited you over, didn't I? I'd open the door and he and Kevin would come in, and Kevin had an electronic drum set and Steve had a microphone that he had plugged into guitar effects. And so they were all distorted and echoey. And I would just like plug them into my 8-track and just let them go for it. And then I'd kick them out and I would finish the song by myself with guitar and bass and this and that. And that's kind of how it happened. But once I opened that door, there was no kicking him out. He came back every day at like 9 in the morning, just for years, going, all right, let's do it again. Let's do it again. And then we decided that we needed to add a bass player. And so I talked Paul into it. He was pretty apprehensive too. But once he met Steve, we all knew Steve and Kevin from the clubs and the bars and stuff like that, but we just didn't know them very well. And they came with a huge crew of funny friends that all have these crazy nicknames, and they're a lot rougher than we were. And they kind of became like our friends and our protectors, and they were like the Campbell Mafia. And so we're like, okay, we like this. This is cool. So I invite Paul. I ended up moving in downstairs from Steve and Kevin in this apartment building just to be closer to them in Campbell. But I talked Paul into coming and meeting them and like talking about it. And he comes to Steve and Kevin's house, and Paul looks out on the balcony. This is upstairs in Campbell apartment, and looks out of the balcony. He's all, hey, that looks like my bike. And Steve's all, oh yeah, it is, I think. And he's like, you stole my bike? Like,
no,
we didn't. They're like, we didn't know it was yours.
Oh
he's like,
my God.
And he's like, okay, well, can I get it back? They're like, sorry, we already have a buyer for it.
Oh my God, no way. That actually happened.
100%.
My brain is just struggling to incorporate that data, man. That is the stuff of like antisocial and hilarious at the same time. My God, what a story.
Like, hey, sorry, that's business, man. That's
sorry,
business.
man. I got
and someone coming by to buy it later. But that's only one of the ways that those guys made money. They did all kinds of fun stuff.
It was just whatever it took. You can say, wow, he was a criminal and all these other things. And he was disciplined. I mean, it sounds like he had almost, as you said, a drill sergeant, almost a militaristic precision. Did he come from a family that was in the military or something like that, that allowed him, that gave him that idea, that template of how to...
I can't remember if his dad was in the military or not, but his dad was a UPS driver. I mean, they looked like they were military people. They always had the high and tight haircuts, kind of squared off, shaved. It's very possible that his dad was in the military, yeah.
Yeah, I'm just blown away by his discipline, his ability to get up early in the morning, bang on the window and say, it's time. We're doing this. And I'm guessing that when you heard those 8 tracks, you were like, okay, I'm feeling this. And let's just talk about place for a second. You talked about him being in the Campbell Mafia. And by the way, Boswell's sadly is no longer there. But I still, when I go to the Prune Yard theaters, I still see Boswell's in my mind. I still imagine the Gents going to be playing there, or who knows if Heroic Airman ever played there. But all I can say is I always think that is inextricably connected to you and Steve. But even when I see just Taco Bravo, just a place that in high school, which we thought was good Mexican food at the time, but it's epic. It was right next to Tower Records, right across the street from the Prune Yard. I always think of Steve when I see that place because it just seems like the kind of place that he would have gone. And I'm imagining that you're a San Jose boy, and there aren't that many San Jose bands who just totally crushed it. Smash Mouth is kind of our band, and it has our sound and our feel and our Santa Cruz Beach boardwalk and the videos. We'd go over the hill, and it's a celebration of that. So many of your videos and your vibes and just the surfer feel, which I know is a very important part of your own life. But let's talk about that. When you heard the music, did you hear the sound of Campbell, San Jose, the place where you're from?
Yeah, I did, but they didn't really wear any one uniform. They were not punk rockers. They were not rockers. They were not hip hop. They weren't any one thing. They were white suburban kids that just loved all that music, and it all came out. All of it came out in the way they presented it. And plus it was so innocent because it was not refined. We're not playing by any rules, hence the name of the band. They just didn't adhere to anything. And I think that's one of the biggest reasons of its success as far as uniqueness of the sound of the band. It didn't make sense. So
yeah, and maybe I'm conflating San Jose and imposing it on my listening to the music itself. But when I hear some of the songs, I imagine places that are within our county that just feel spot on. I mean, All Star is an international song. That's the whole globe. But there's certain songs in your catalog that just feel like, well, you even mentioned Hey Ho. There's a little San Ho in there. So I definitely feel it. But just one last piece on the listening to the 8-track tapes. I mean, you heard something. And so much so that you're like, Paul DeLille, get your ass over here. We're going to jam with these guys and see where it takes us.
Yeah. Yeah.
At what point was there a tipping where you were just like, I'm all in 100%. This is happening?
Well, I mean, they wanted to be an alternative band. And so I'm like, okay, what is that? And so at the time you had like Bush and No Doubt, Orange County scene. Closer to home, we had Rancid and Green Day, which were influences on us for sure on the first record. And guys in Rancid are from Campbell. And so that comes out in the way they sound. And therefore, I wanted to sound like that. Rancid was a huge influence. But it was hard to pull that off because nobody was that legit of a punker. We're just, like I said, suburban kids. So you'd think the first time I knew was probably like the first couple songs that I recorded of just them singing and playing these songs. I mean, it was just drums and Steve singing. That's how it started.
Yeah, exactly.
And so I would have to go back and try to like make that happen. But Kevin was a metal drummer and Steve was an ex-rapper. And so I had to just kind of put the pieces together and figure it out. But I think it was the uniqueness of Steve's voice that kept me engaged.
Magic. Just pure magic. Let's talk about the time you saved your life.
Okay. I mean, there's probably a few times, but I think you're talking about the birthday party, right?
I was thinking about Cypress Hill.
Yeah. So it was Be Real's birthday party and Steve got invited. And so he asked me if I wanted to go. And it was at the House of Blues in Hollywood. And we went in there and it's like, it was just gangster central. It was just a bunch of crazy gangsters. And, we were enjoying the music and a bunch of people, everybody was there. Everyone was on stage singing Cypress Hill songs and just all the classics and everything. It was a lot of fun. I was just kind of getting into it. And all of a sudden, Steve whispered to me, he's like, I think it's going to get weird in a minute. And he was pointing at something that was happening close to the stage. And, it was like this guy like had his shirt up with some sort of tattoo here. And the other guy they're just doing their standoff thing. And he goes, I think we should go. And I'm like, nah, it's fine. And he just grabbed me and started like pushing me towards the door and ended up back door out, like a fire exit, emergency exit. I think the alarm may have went off when we walked out. And then we were sort of down in the parking lot and our hotel was up on Sunset Boulevard. And so we walked up this side street. And as soon as we got up there, everybody started pouring out of the club. And it was just a big brawl inside. There must have been like 2 different gangs going on or something just happened. And the cops showed up, all this stuff happened. And we did see some violence and it was a pretty scary thing. And he got me out of there before it ever even escalated. And that's just something that he could see. He was a very good judge of character and he could really read a room and know what was happening in there. And he saw danger and said, let's go. So
it's like he had the street smarts of a New Jersey wise guy, but he lived in Campbell.
Yeah.
Like he could see what was up and he could get things done.
Yeah.
Wow. I mean, that's just such an epic story. And you saved his life in return, it sounds like. And that was pretty cool.
Again, a couple times. Yeah, he was just weird about that. Was the one thing I never really understood, how sort of not present he was in traffic. When he was driving, he was fine. But when he was a pedestrian, I had to keep him from getting run over by a truck once, cars, like waiting in the hotel lobby, stepping off the curb and not looking the right way. And had pull him back a couple times.
The muscle on you, bro, because he was a big boy.
He's a big guy. Yeah, when you see your buddy and your lead singer about to get squashed,
I'm so glad you did. What are some other stories that defined him as you see him? Because, his stories about Steve are just things of, frankly, American legend. There's something so Americana about the guy.
One of the things that you would see at a Smash Mouth shows is Steve bringing people up on stage. He didn't like the barricade between him and the people. And so, he was known to get out there and pull people up, especially kids. He loved when there were kids on stage. And so at the end of the night, you would normally find a bunch of people up on stage singing All-Star, or like just dancing, having fun. He cared a lot about kids and their safety at shows. And so he would get kids over the barricade. And that was a typical night in a Smash Mouth show.
That's brilliant. What are some things that people may have concluded about Steve that were entirely inaccurate, just based on persona or news events or other things that you would want people to know? Like, no, this is the truth.
Well, for one thing, like, he definitely demanded respect people. And when he wasn't getting it, he was like backed in a corner, and that's when his claws came out. So things like people throwing bread at him at that show, throwing beers at him or water at him, or just any sort of disrespectful thing, is like, he does not stand for that. And so that's when you're going to get flipped off, and he's going to get on the mic and he's going to stop the music and point you out and say, no, you don't do that. And I have seen that taken out of context quite a bit in the media. The gal that put some video together where she missed a lot of parts, and she did some sort of editing to make it look like he was the bad guy. And that just wasn't the case. He really had to be pushed to get there.
Well, that makes so much sense. We all have Achilles heels, and respect, I can really vibe with that feel. I'm sure he gave people the respect that he sought, and that he did it by just bringing people up on stage and saying, I don't want there to be a separation between you and me, even though I'm here on stage. I'm one of the people, you're one of me. We are we, so to speak. And if somebody starts throwing bread at you and beers and flipping you off, it's like, yeah, we all have triggers. And so taken out of context, that was just a snippet of time. And I'm guessing if he had the opportunity to speak to it from a place of truth and address it, he probably would have said, I'm guessing based on what you're saying, that he would have said something like, just like what you just said, like, this is what happened for me.
You could only push him around so much.
And so instead of him being the butt of the joke in that video, you're describing a virtue of demanding reciprocal respect. And I don't think anybody could not relate to that on some level.
Yeah, if you were walking down the street and somebody threw something at you, wouldn't you probably say, hey, what's that for? But I don't know why people do that. I've been hit by all kinds of stuff on stage. I don't know what the attraction of that is.
Oh, I can tell you as a member of the Muggle class, it's envy.
Yeah, maybe.
At least that would be my guess, is like, damn, you got this. Why didn't I get that? I'm going to take you down a notch or something like that. That would be my best guess. I could be entirely wrong. I'm just going to,
right.
I guess.
Yeah, maybe they wanted to be talked to by him. So maybe that's why they do it.
Right. Wow. I'll get you to engage me.
Right. But the one thing, about that whole bread thing is, like, as soon as he mentioned it, that was a bread festival of some sort. So everybody had bread and they were like putting them in balls and throwing them at each other. But he actually didn't appreciate that.
Yeah, I would think not.
Yeah.
It's funny. So glad I was just at Rooster T. Feathers, a local comedy club in Sunnyvale. And one of the things they tell you straight up right off the bat is no heckling. The fact is, we come here to see Smash Mouth. We come here to see John Mulaney perform comedy or whatever it is. We're not here to see some guy throwing bread at the star. We're here to see the star shine. That's why we come.
Yeah.
So,
but that's a good point. It is a form of heckling, and that's probably why people do it. They want a spotlight for a minute.
That Andy Warhol moment.
Yeah, exactly.
This is a big question, but I'm going to ask it. How are you now a better man for having known Steve?
Well, like I said earlier, a lot of his ethic, his work ethic and his humor rubs off on you if you're around him enough. Yeah, for that, I'm forever changed. Totally different person. I became a little more of a perfectionist. I became a little funnier. I stand up for myself a little more. Things like that. You have to have respect, and you have to respect people, and they need to respect you back. These are just kind of things that just rub off if you're standing next to him for very long.
And I imagine several of those gifts that he gave you that cannot die are really powerful, empowering. I'm guessing the ability to stand up for yourself is a big one. you saw him embody that. Like, hey, I'm a gentle giant, but don't push the buttons.
Right.
And I'm guessing that before knowing him, you were somewhat conflict averse, and it caused you to say, I'm not just going to put my tail between my legs. I will speak up.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. I mean, it's, if you are around someone like that long enough, those things are going to rub off. Like a parent, the things that you take away from what your parents taught you, it was the same. It was different. He was like an older brother or something, but not a dad. But yeah.
Is there something I should have asked, but haven't yet asked about Steve himself, your relationship with him, something that you'd want to talk about?
Yeah. I mean, if we're going to get heavy, there is some guilt from his passing. You know, we hadn't spoken a couple of years, and I'm pretty sure what happened was that when he was asked to step down from Smash Mouth, from the lead singer position in Smash Mouth, just because he just wasn't able to handle it anymore with his health and the outbursts and things like that, it was sort of getting a little unmanageable. And I had talked to him for a long time, like an hour and a half on the phone, about a week before that happened. And after it happened, I think he was expecting me to call him and just say, hey, man, sorry about that, or just have some sort of conversation with him. And I didn't call him right away. I was going to give him some space. And soon after that, he sent me a text that was pretty rough. And I could tell he wasn't him. He wasn't in his normal space. There was something affecting his judgment by the things he was saying. And it was night and day from the conversation we had a week before. And so I knew that whatever it was, he was mad at me about something. There was something in the clouding his judgment, and I was going to let him just sit with that. And we'd always come back and talk at some point. We'll get this back together and we'll talk again someday. And it just never happened. And so when I found out that he was sick in the hospital with final stage liver failure, I reached out to someone who was with him to try to have a chance of some sort of last words, if he wanted to say something to me or if I could say something to him. And I think it was too late. I don't think that he was able to speak anymore. And so there is living with that right now. And I really wish that we could have had a conversation before, but.
Is there any indication that your words were conveyed to him and that they landed?
I hope so. I might find out when I talk to that person if, you know, what happened. I did hear another mutual friend of ours, somebody put the phone up to him and that guy was talking to him, and I think he got a smile out of it. And so I'm glad that he understood who was speaking to him. Yeah, I sent my prayers and hopefully they got to him, and we prayed. And I have a few friends who are pastors, and they prayed with me on the phone. And I just hope he found his way to that place where his son is. Yeah.
To be reunited with Presley.
Yeah.
Wow. It's a beautiful prayer, my man. And I just feel so much of the sadness and the heaviness that accompanies that reality and the complexity of the ambivalence about reaching out, because you were so understandably stung by what he said. And I think so many people who are listening to this can probably resonate with this phenomenon. What would be your advice to them if they have somebody who they're having really means a lot to them, but they're having a spectacular tiff with?
Well, life's short, of course. Every moment is precious, and every person in your life, they're in your life for a reason. And if you have anything that you need to squash, got to do it right now, because you don't want to regret. And that's not a good feeling. And I'm remembering all the good stuff. There's so much more goodness than badness in the relationship with Steve and I.
For sure.
Could have been pretty rough roller coaster ride sometimes, but for the most part, I haven't thought very much about that except for what I just told you. Every time I think of Steve, I think of fun and funny and hard work and just amazing times seeing the world with him. We had a few things in common. One of them is both of our mothers died. This is before we knew each other. And so when we met, we had that bond that we lost our moms right at the same time. And so felt like just like we were meant to get together and be friends. We both struggled with that quite a bit. So,
man, I did not know that. How old were you when you lost your mom, and how old was
21?
That's really hot. That's really heavy.
Yeah. So yeah, when we met, we had that in common, and we were able to talk about that quite a bit. I don't know if you really talked about it with a lot of other people, but we had that shared.
And I imagine that both of you, when you were on tour, seeing the world, wish you could have shared that with your moms. who would have been so happy and proud.
There were a lot of teary moments, especially when we'd win an award or we'd be number one on the charts or we just sold 1 million, whatever those milestones, those achievements. While we were having the achievement, we would kind of look at each other and give each other a hug and have a tear and just go, well, this is for moms right here. So I'm fortunate that I had that to share with him because, of course, you want your parents to check out your achievements and give you a hug for those things. So we were there for each other for that.
So beautiful. And recently you did actually get to have your father witness you receiving an award that you couldn't have possibly imagined all these years later, one that's around your neck at the moment.
It's my bling.
Yes, it is. You got a BMI medal.
I kind of forgot it was on my neck. I don't walk around wearing this thing.
Walking through Nashville. How y'all doing? What's up? Yeah, that's a pretty amazing piece there that you got recognized for, I guess, 24 years after, or something like that, after All Star came out.
Right. So yeah, it's a very strange award. It's thrice removed. Noriega, the rapper Noriega, in one of his songs says, at the white boy bar singing, "Hey now, you're an all-star." Just that alone gave me a writing credit on that song, right?
Unbelievable.
So years and years later, this year actually, an artist named Armani White has a song called Billie Eilish, and they sampled the music from the Noriega song, Nori song. So therefore, I have a writing credit on that song now. And so BMI Hip Hop R&B Awards, somebody sent me a message saying, "Hey, we want you to come and walk the carpet and receive an award," and this and that. I'm like, I can't take any credit for that. They're like, "Oh yeah, you can. Yeah, you're a writer. Come get this." And so I just got back. That's my most sunburned. I just went to Miami Beach to accept this award. And I just think it's funny. I really didn't have anything much to do with it.
Except for the fact that you created something that is indelible, for lack of a better term. It's just permanent in our psyches. You've made a stamp that 24 years later, I mean, a lot of great songs came out at that time, but I was listening to Sylvester Stallone talking about the fact that, yeah, a lot of great movies came out during my years of making Rockies, but these are the ones that people remember. And All Star is one of those songs that remains relevant at celebrations and moments. People are going to dance to it.
Yeah, for sure. I was going to just let everyone know that I'm working with Jackie Evanko, who was on America's Got Talent when she was 10 years old. She was an opera singer, like a child prodigy.
What?
She's all grown up and she's in her early 20s and we're making music together. And the first single just dropped today. It's called Behind My Eyes. She sent me a message just while we were on the phone saying that it charted at like number 19 already on its first day.
Come on, man. Congratulations.
Yeah. Jackie Evanko. It's Evancho.
Yeah, you're talking about your work with Jackie Evanko, and I know that you're doing a lot of other work. You're constantly redefining yourself, and you're doing some work with The Defiant.
Yeah, so The Defiant is Dickie Barrett from the Mighty Mighty Boss Tones.
Oh, come on.
Pete Parada, who was the former drummer for The Offspring. Yeah, Johnny Rio from the Street Dogs and Joey LaRocca from the Briggs. It's sort of like a punk rock supergroup. The reason it came together was Joey and Dickie and I were at a park in Highland Park, Los Angeles, California, and watching our kids play. And I've known Dickie over the years on the road and this and that. We were never like super great friends, but just acquaintances. We'd see each other on the road. And we were just joking. We're like, yeah, someday we're going to probably start a band together. It's like a dad band. Old washed up rock stars, you know. About, 2 years ago, I get a phone call from a friend of mine, Joe Sib, who ran a record company called Side One Dummy. He's like, hey, man, you know what? He's like, Dickie Barrett? I'm like, yeah. He's like, you should start a band with him. And I'm like, that's so weird. We talked about that a couple of years ago. You should do it, man. Give him a call. Here's his number. Yeah, so we started talking on the phone and sharing some ideas. He told me that Pete Parada from The Offspring lives here in Tennessee. And so we started talking and I sent them a song or two and they're like, yes, let's do this. And so the first 2 songs that I delivered are on the album. And then after that, we all basically shared the songwriting role.
That's great that you guys are doing this. This is going to be amazing. Are you going to tour or what's up with this?
At some point, we released a single a couple weeks ago and there's a video. So go to The Defiant Official on YouTube or Instagram, The Defiant Official, and you will find our first single and video.
I'm definitely checking that out. Encourage my listeners to do the same. I'm curious to know, is there a song that when you think of it, you think this, even if you wrote it, this is Steve's song? Like, this is the song that exemplifies who he was and he just leaned into it. If there was a song in your Smash Mouth catalog, what would it be that defined him in your eyes?
Hands down, Fallen Horses.
Really?
Oh yeah, because we were at a sound check. I believe we were in Scotland, and we were sound checking, and I was checking my guitar and I just started playing these chords, and he's like, "What's that?" And I said, "I don't know." We had just found out that Linda McCartney passed away, the sound check. And so we were all a little sad. We were sad for Paul and just sad. And I was playing those chords and Kevin started playing a drum beat. Paul came in. We started just making this song right there on the spot. And Steve, who wasn't really typically a songwriter all the time, he kind of left that to me, just started singing the words. And that song was written right there on that stage while we were kind of mourning Linda McCartney. And so Fallen Horses is the song I would say mostly defines him because he wrote the words and he delivered that song with so much sadness and passion.
I love that song. What can I say? There's so many songs that have blown me away that, again, you could put next to anything and it stands alone. That's one of them. And I'm so glad to hear you say that. That's really cool.
Yeah, that's the one.
Well, my man, and this may be too personal for me to ask, but I'm going to ask it anyway. If there was something you could say to Steve now, and he was to hear it on this very podcast, and what would it be?
Thank you. Thanks for being persistent. Thank you for banging on my door and knocking my door down and getting me out of bed to make music with you. Thank you for your work ethic. And thank you for teaching me how to demand respect from people and to also respect others. I can't be as funny as you, but thank you for letting the rest of us borrow your humor. Yeah. Appreciate you so much and miss you already. Thanks for the music. Thanks for your unique voice. Thanks for being so great with the fans all these years. Thanks for taking me with you on that ride.
Greg, I had to close my eyes as I was taking in what you were sharing with him. It feels so beautiful to hear you say that, like a prayer. Just, man, I'm deeply moved. And I want to thank you so much for sharing your thoughts on a true giant who was in our midst for too short a time, but just long enough to have left a real beautiful mark on our hearts and in our world of music. It has been relevant in my life since the moment it showed up. The first time I heard it in 1997, it's the best. Thanks so much for sharing your world with Steve.
It's therapeutic to talk about him.
And I think my listeners will resonate with that notion that it'll be therapeutic vicariously for them around Steve himself and around important people in their lives.
Yeah. Hug your friends, hug your family.
Thanks again, Craig. This is amazing. This is a
Thank
real
you
gift.
for having me. Appreciate you.
This is Dr. Adam Dorsey thanking you for listening to Super Psyched. If you know anyone who might like it or who might benefit from listening, share it. And if you like the episode, please hit subscribe.